day, Mom. My name is Yunelisa Biricaberta, and I'm going to discuss is Chapter 8, which is Filipino Values. Values are universal, shared by all people, what we call Filipino values. Filipino values are this given emphasis in the culture and tradition of the Filipino. They shape our ugaling Filipino. The study of cultural values belongs also to the ethics. Filipino cultural values. Values do not belong exclusively to Filipino, but certain universal values find different meaning and application within the experiential and historical circumstances of the Filipino. Filipino cultural values, it is also characterized by a strong sense of community, families, and respect for elders. Values of the Filipino. Pananalig sa may kapal comes from the belief of God is the supreme creator. Pag-ibig, it is the relationship to someone, pakikipagkapwa, pagtatanggap at pakikitungo sa ibang tao bilang kapantay katulad. Pagpapahalaga sa pamilya, putting importance on our family, hiya, shame, humiliation, embarrassment, dishonor, shyness, utang na loob, a sense of obligation to return a favor owed to someone. Filipino moral ideal, success is measured in terms of moral respectability, di baling mahirap basta't may dangal. The Filipino believes moral integrity is the essentiality of becoming human. It is above the desire of material enrichment. Di baling mahirap basta't may dangal, naniniwala ang Pilipino na ang moral na integridad ay ang esensyalidad ng maging tao. Ito ay higit sa pagnanais para sa material na pagpapayaman, di baling mahirap basta't may dangal. This moral expectation is similar true with much lesser significance with such concept as magpakalalaki o magpakababae, implying that man and woman have different traits and capabilities just as a man or woman must act in accordance with the demands of their respective gender. A person ought to live up to the demands of his humanity or pagkatao o pagpapakatao. Ang moral na pag-asa na ito ay magkatulad, bagamat may mas maliit na kabuluhan sa mga konseptong gaya ng magpakalalaki o magpakababae na nagpapahiwatig na ang lalaki at babae ay may magkaibang katangian at kakayanan, kung papaanong ang isang lalaki o isang babae ay dapat kumilos alinsunod sa mga hinihingi ng kanyang kasarian. Ang isang tao ay nararapat na tuparin ang mga hinihingi ng kanyang pagkatao o pagpapakatao. The Filipino moral ideas coincides with what other people any culture regards as the greatest attribute of a human being. A person must be caring, honest, hardworking, and respectful of others. He must have an impeccable character. Failing the moral standards makes a person masamang tao and is looked down as hayop or walang hiya, a shameless beast. Ang huwarang moral ng Pilipino ay naayon sa kung ano ang ituturing ng ibang mga tao sa anumang kultura bilang pinakadakilang katangian ng isang tao. Ang isang tao ay dapat na mamalasakit, tapat, masipag at magalang sa iba. Siya ay dapat magkaroon ng isang hindi nagkakamali na karakter. Ang pagkabigo sa moral standard ay nagiging isang masamang tao and is looked down as hayop or walang hiya, walang kahiya-hiyang hayop. There are two kinds of values, objective and subjective values. Both values are both subjective and objective. Objective values in the sense that they are things are valuable and desirable. When people discuss morality, they often mean by the term objective value, a property that is intrinsic to that which is being evaluated that give its value independent of its relationship to anything else. Example of objective values is if knowledge is good simply in and of itself, irrespective of whether people actually do or would desire it, then the fact that knowledge is good is objective, or equivalently, knowledge is an object good or value. Subjective values, in the sense that they are proposed a subject, that is, a person who is valuing or experiencing such value. Um, Subjective value. The concept of subjective value is that each individual has their own preferences for object or action. This concept is applied economics to understand behavior and operate beyond the sense of observed behavior. The example of the subjective value is the concept that suggests cannot be consistently measured. For example, let's say you have one wool coat and the weather is extremely cold outside. You will want to wear that coat to keep you from freezing. At that moment, the wool coat might be worth more to you than a diamond necklace. Values are either positive or negative. Positive values when they contribute to the development of proper attitude and behavior, while negative values when they do not lend to the development of proper behavior but instead lead to the corruption of behavior. While values are objectively good, hence we call them values, their use of application by the subject that is subjectively may be an occasion for them to be twisted by misplaced motives. Signal gives us an example of ambivalence of our pakikisama value system. Another means of achieving SIR, smooth interpersonal relationship, is pakikisama. Pakikisama come from the word sama, which means accompany or go along with, means giving and are yielding to the will of the leader on the majority so that the decision of the group becomes unanimous. Double standard mentality. The Filipino moral behavior is characterized as ambivalent, meaning that the Filipino is comfortable with the double standard mentality. Plainly, the values recognized are allowed to play a dual role not unlike that of Jekyll and Hyde. The truth, says Father Gorospe, is that Filipino values are ambivalent in the sense that they are a potential for good and evil. They may help or hinder personal and national development depending on how they are understood or practical or lived. Father Gorospe wonders whether this double standard is not in fact the result of our society value system which introduce on the value system of the individual. Social expectation or pressure from family and community simply makes it difficult for the individual Filipino to act in accordance with his personal convictions. Erroneous norms of morality. Father Gorospe traces the roots of double standard morality to the adherence of Filipino to false norm of morality. Accordingly, Filipino judge what is right and wrong on the basis of first, group centeredness or group thinking; second, on the basis of shame and fear of authority figure. Group thinking is the mentality of the herd where the lead carabao goes there the rest of the carabaos go. What is right or wrong depends on what is favored by the group as a group. Instead of listening to his conscience coming from within his being. The other norms of morality which Filipino are inclined to the follow is based on fear or shame of the authority figure. This is the don't be caught attitude. 7. According to these norms, it is alright to do wrong provided one is not caught doing it. Reorientation of attitude. It is the solution of the moral ambiguity of the Filipinos depends largely on the attitude towards the problem itself. There are three difficulties must be overcome. First is ignorance. Filipinos must be made aware of problem. One who is not aware of an illness does not go to the doctor. Similarly, a Filipino unaware of the inconsistency in his moral outlook will not attempt to correct himself. There is indeed a need to internalize values to make them a part of one's inner character. Values are not clothes to wear, they are sinews of human behavior. They are what a person ought to become as a human being. And also, second is complacency is the feeling of being comfortable with the present state of affairs. It leads one to be indifferent to existing problems. One who is complacent is afraid to make any alteration of his behavior. He is afraid of the efforts and look at them as painful of difficult process. Virtue precisely comes from the Latin vir meaning man. It requires manly effort to discipline oneself to convert inclination to tendencies toward what is good. Third is rationalization is the mental turning away from the real issue. It is an attitude intended for escape responsibility. It is ready excuse for doing what is wrong or ako'y tao lamang, ganyan lang ang buhay. Uso yan. It is the rationalization. Core values of New Filipino. Moral maturity is a process of conversion. It means shading of the old self and putting on the new self. For the conversion to be the total, it must work from within the person. It involves new way of thinking, new perception of realities. The human person has value not because of what he was in terms of material possession, but for what he is creative, gifted by God within intellect and will. Father Gorospe explored the potential values which he considered or core central to the education and eventual transformation of the Filipino. Moral commitment. Values are not acquired genetically, they are personally cultivated and lived. They involve a commitment wherein one submit himself to the rational demand on his intellect for truth and the moral demands of the will to abide by what is good. Characteristic of a responsible person. Father Gorospe speak of moral commitment as a responsible to the Christian ideals. The characteristic he describes, however, apply to man as man insofar as man must be committed to the good of his nature. After all, before one is a Christian, he must first be a good man. A responsible has the following qualities. First, a responsible person has the ability to differentiate between what is essential and accidental. Insofar as commitment to moral values is also religious responses, for Father Gorospe writes, an individual is religiously natured if they can differentiate between a functional and an experimental or lived type of religion. Second, a responsible person has the ability to internalize his values. For a responsible person, life is not an external following of required actions. Instead, life is the expression of love coming from his heart and mind, motivating all his action and desires. Truth, love, and faith. This is need for intellect conversion. One should ready to deny what is false and to accept what is true. It involves genuine concern for study and research, denying guests as reliable sources of information. According to Father Grospe, developing creative and critical thinking in order to transform the environment and develop a culture expression of the ideas and aspiration of the Filipino people and build structure for a just and human society. Second, integrity. Stand for wholesomeness or completeness. It's cannot perfection of whole from perfection of its part. Integrity means honesty. It means that repudiation of lying, deceit, cheating, stealing, fraud, hypocrisy, and dishonesty in all its form. Integrity is the essence of self-respect. One should love himself and keep his dignity. Third is hard work. Hard work. We, the Filipino, are hard-working. Many Filipino have left their families and homes for work, abroad of work, and yet then is needed to develop the proper attitude toward work. But the inordinate desire to get rich quickly and too much is an entrapment if the soul, when the materialistic goals become the primary and sole reason for working, work becomes an excuse for greed and contention. Fourth is social justice requires that we share our talents and materials possession with those who are unfortunate and poor. The concept that giving aims, donates, and assistance to the poor is only a demand of charity, and therefore voluntary must give way to the concept of social justice. Social justice is founded on the principle that earthly good belong to all men, for them to share equally, not in the mathematical sense of equality, but in a prudential sense, that is, that all have the right to this sense life, that since people are not similarly gifted with the tools of productivity, it's become an obligation for those gifted to care for those less, and though all men must share proportionately the goods of the earth.